Welcome to Agree to SisAgree, the podcast where two sisters show how you can disagree about everything but still keep that family bond and friendship.
That's right. We're Sharon and Karen, and we don't just see the world differently, we live it differently. Grab a coffee, settle in, and enjoy the conversation. Who knows? You might even find yourself changing sides.
Okay. I went ahead and started just because I don't want to miss anything.
Don't want to forget. And
I don't want to forget.
like-
I'm very forgetful. I'm a newbie to this.
Really? Yeah.
It takes some getting used to.
Yes, it does. I've learned a lot in a very short period of time.
I've tried very hard to learn nothing.
And you've done an amazing job at it.
So, hi, Karen and Katie and Sadie.
Hello.
Hi, Sharon. I'm in Morocco, and we've got these lovely girls, Katie and Sadie, with us today. Friends of yours in Texas, right?
That's right. And it is July 6th. Just celebrated our country's independence, 249 years old. So Katie and Sadie, Karen and Sharon here. We love that, how our names rhyme. We wanted to bring you on as a guest for a couple of reasons, actually. One is because when Karen and I were first talking about doing this podcast, I was actually at your house visiting and I mentioned it and you both thought it was a great idea, which I thought was wonderful because you're in your 20s and we're in our 50s. And so that made me very happy that a younger generation thought it was a good idea. And also, Sadie came up with the name for the podcast. So thank you very much, Sadie.
Thank you, Sadie.
But also because y'all were asking what topics are y'all going to cover. So I was going through a list of topics and then we started having conversations about some of those topics and started realizing that the two of you are not always on the same side of a viewpoint or a political stance. And so
It's rare. Yep, it's rare.
it's rare that you are on the same side.
Yes, I mean, in every aspect of our daily lives, I don't even think that we ever want to eat at the same place. Like it's a crazy coincidence if both of us want Chicken Express at the same time. So yeah, it's something to be celebrated when it does happen.
Yes.
Yes, Karen and I tend to celebrate when we actually agree on something. It's pretty interesting. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I'm going to start, Sadie, with you.
Okay. I am an environmentalist. I love all things nature, plants, animals. I know it's same thing as saying I like people, places, and things, but I spend a lot of my free time gardening or taking care of various animals. I have a colony in my apartment complex of cats that I take care of. Spend a lot of time by the river, and I would like to be more involved in stuff like that. I also spend a lot of time painting, and I just got into crocheting, and so I like to do anything artistic, poetry, reading, writing, music, ballet, all that fun stuff. Okay, is it my turn? My name's Katie. And Sadie and I are 22 months apart. There's a grade in between us at school, if you want to think about it that way. But I am just now starting my adult life, living alone and doing a big girl job. And I still think that my life really revolves around the people that I love. And I'm a big fan of Jesus. I go to church. I go to small group. Spend a lot of my time thinking about how I can be a better Christian and resting when I can. It doesn't seem like there's dull moments in either of our lives most of the time, but we are very centered around our family and centered around our pets. And we just, believe it or not, would prefer to be together majority of the time.
Yes.
I get that.
I do too. I love being around my family for sure. So you already kind of mentioned your age gap. Do you feel like because you were only a grade apart in school that you were close when you were growing up?
We were always in the same schools together, except for 2 years in high school and 2 years in middle school. Our schools we went to were pretty small. Yeah, I never realized it until I saw her from like the other end of the hallway that I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not the craziest thing ever when people call me her name. Like when I saw her from a distance. So yeah, we've never really had a long gap of time where we've been like not influenced by the other one. I mean, we didn't go to the same college. I went to Texas Tech and She went to the University of Arkansas. So I guess that is the only point in our lives where we've truly been separated.
Well, good. Sometimes people have said they can't tell my sister and I apart when we're talking. My accent gets a little bit stronger when I'm around her too much.
Good thing.
It's a good thing. I don't think so, but
It's a really good thing.
when did you guys first realize that your political leanings were different?
I kind of always knew because we're obviously in Texas, a very red state, and Fort Worth specifically is pretty red. But around my freshman year of high school or maybe 8th grade, is when I started to kind of really examine the stuff that I was believing and the stuff that I was supporting and kind of start to reevaluate. And growing up, liberal was a very dirty word. You didn't want to be called it. It was an insult.
In
So
Texas,
for the longest time. Oh, yeah.
And especially in our family.
Oh, yeah. So I didn't really identify myself as Democrat, liberal, but that's when my beliefs started to shift. And then in 2020, when COVID happened and the Black Lives Matter protests were really taking off, and that election cycle is when I really dug my heels in and was like, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for. And kind of when I realized that we differed.
Yeah. I think about when I watched my friends kind of start expressing that maybe they were leaning a little bit more left, which is, I mean, coming from a Catholic school is just, it's not the majority at all. So I think when I saw my friends not hide their beliefs anymore is when I started drawing lines with her, maybe, is when it started to get more in my face, because it wasn't ever something I wanted to explore on my own or dive into or research or anything like that. But I think my friends starting to have more of a voice, I don't think it gave you permission, but I just noticed it more in her probably, but I can't pinpoint when that happened. So we can say 2020.
Okay, let's say about 5 years ago, y'all probably started realizing that you had different views. Were there any conversations or disagreements that you had that kind of put a strain on your relationship?
I would say the conversation that I remember created the most like scream fighting, I would say, was when we would talk about the wealth gap in America. And I was very, tax billionaires. If you make over this amount a year, you don't need that much money. And she was very, you earn that money, you get to keep it. So that's the first time I remember us really agreeing on a policy basis. And that was around 2020.
Yeah, I remember I voted in that election, not because I cared, but to spite her.
I have made sure that mine got mailed in just to cancel out my sister's vote in Texas.
Yeah, she does. She does do that. I know she does. How did y'all resolve it? Because Sadie, you said it was kind of screaming. It sounds like it got heated. That's what my sister and I call it when we have vehemently disagree with each other. We heated. Well, he did. But how did you resolve it?
Just to paint a picture, this last November after the election, I remember we were all getting ready for work at the same time and Trump had won and she was inconsolable. Like, you just did your makeup. You literally just put your face on and then she's downstairs sobbing. Like, what was the point of that? And like me, I just didn't understand like how you could get so worked up. I didn't understand how this could just wreck her. I mean, the way she went about her day was furious. And I was just like, whatever, I don't think I would have cared if it went the other way. But my day is not different. And so in that moment, I wanted to wring you in the neck, but I hugged you instead. And that was when I was just like, I don't care how your emotions are making you look, because I still have to comfort the person that's hiding deep down underneath the fury.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
that's sweet.
But it's interesting, though, because I kind of feel the same way, Katie. And I've said this to you, Karen, on the podcast before. It upsets me sometimes that she gets so reactive emotionally to things. And I'm like, I just feel like
I got to the point, guys, after Trump, that it was going to be very difficult for me. I really struggled with how can I even be in my sister's house, knowing that she voted for Trump. And I ended up actually...
Who I voted for, by the way, because I never tell anybody who I vote for.
Well,
between
she
God.
supported Trump. So I made the assumption that she voted for him because she supports him. But I ended up actually going to therapy to help me because I was so angry and I was so angry at her. How could she do this? How could she think this way, support this man? And it took a lot of therapy to get past that point. And it's also what makes me want to continue to do this podcast is it was so difficult for us to have conversations because everything became political after Trump. We couldn't even talk about current events. We're only talking maybe on the phone once a year, twice a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Not often. And now we talk every week. It's incredible the connection. We talk. But we're back to actually being sisters. And I felt like we weren't sisters for so long. And so that's also partly why we do this. So I'm glad that you guys don't let it get in between you.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is that you don't let it get between you?
I think it's not worth it. I think that our family's small, and I mean, it just in the area, we're the only family we have in like a many hour radius. So it's not worth it, and it's not what Jesus says to do. And it's just like putting more energy into being mad, and it's taking more out of you. I mean, like they say, it takes more muscles in your face to frown. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's not worth it. I have no idea what you're going to say.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of that forced proximity because, well, first of all, we don't have opinions that are so drastically different and on subjects that I would consider just a deal breaker. And it's because we don't have any disagreements that are so severe that I feel the need to end that relationship that I just, like Katie said, it's not really worth it. She is my sister. I love her. We are close because we're close in age. So it's not just the end of the world, our disagreements. I think it would be very different if we disagreed on some of the stuff that I do think is worth ending a relationship. That would be a whole nother can of worms. But thankfully, we don't have anything like that.
Do you think that that is indicative of your age? Do you think younger generations have an easier time having respectful political conversations than maybe older generations? Because we tend to get a little bit more stubborn the older that we get.
No, not at all. I'm not stubborn.
I would say that it's probably more to do with our faith than anything, because I base a lot of my political opinions and decisions on what I think Jesus would want and what the Bible says. And so because we are both Christian, it's a lot easier to be like, this is what the Bible says. Jesus says to love everyone and to be kind and that only he can judge. So I can just pull out scripture and be like, this is what's going on right now is not what God would want and what Jesus says is the way to do. So that helps.
Yeah, I think that I didn't have enough of a religious base to be able to draw on that. My husband is more religious than I am. We're both Muslim, but he would be the one in my ear saying, you can't be angry at your sister about this. He was, you need to get over this. It's not important. Your relationship is more important. So that faith was driving him to try to drive me into letting go of that animosity. I think Sharon will back me up on this. I have never been very religious. So
no, like when we were growing up and stuff, it was always me and Randy going to church, not you. And
unfortunately, it wasn't something that I could draw on to help me get past that. But I think that's great that you guys are able to do that.
Yeah, but it's interesting too, because both of you said that it was your faith that allows you to have these disagreements and not let it come in between your relationship and being sisters. But it's interesting that you also both have different values and views, which tells me that you interpret your faith or the word in the Bible differently at times.
You could say that.
Yeah. So I find that interesting. And that's a whole nother podcast, sis, that we need to do.
But I also think it's interesting. So how does your faith come into play? I know that comes into play when you're disagreeing with your sister. What about when you're confronted with other people that have opposing political views? Or do you sense any animosity there?
I think that where we are, the people we've been surrounded with, for me to be obviously disagreed with. It's just not something that happens to me a lot. I am only really confronted with another person's completely opposite opinion in my own house.
Yeah.
With somebody
Yeah,
that
because
like
you're in
I know I
Texas.
can
Yeah.
exactly. We can step on each other and it's going to be fine. And so I think I really can't speak to disagreeing with somebody in an outside environment where you have to choose your words a little differently and you shouldn't raise your voice. So I don't know. You probably have more experience there.
I mean, I'm just fortunate enough that the people in my life, my friends, the people that I interact with generally agree with me, at least on the main points. I don't know about anything deeper than that. I'm sure there's disagreements that we have, but anything that I would consider a deal breaker and passionate enough that I need to talk about it, I'm pretty much in agreement. I am kind of at a point in my life where if I meet someone who does have a disagreement that's on one of those deal breaker topics, I just don't talk to them anymore.
Okay,
That's one way to do it.
for example, we went to a volleyball tournament last week and it was my event. I invited her to. There's 100 people there. Maybe 4 or 5 people had Trump t-shirts on. And from what I gathered from your debrief was you didn't want to go back next year because of that.
Yep. That would be correct. I made a concentrated effort not to talk to those people throughout the night, and I said, thank you, I'm done.
And that's interesting because I think that does highlight the difference between the ages, Sharon, because I was telling our sister-in-law the other day, if I still lived in Texas, I think I would be in an argument with someone every single day. Every single day. Because the older you get, the less filter you have on what you say and do. And so I don't think that I would have been able to resist going up to those people and trying to engage in conversation, which would not have been a good idea.
But this is what's really interesting, y'all. Everybody on this call knows my husband and knows he is a big Trump supporter and he has lots of Trump t-shirts. We went to a family reunion in California and he decided he was packing every single one of his Trump t-shirts. He's like, if people get offended, that's on them. That's not on me. Do you know how many people, and we're talking locals, store owners, shop owners, waiters walked up to him and as quietly as they could whispered in his ear, I love your shirt.
California?
In California. I'm not kidding y'all. So several times on this podcast, Karen, you have said, well, that's because you're in Texas. That's because you're in Texas.
No, it's just...
I mean, but there's just as many liberals in Texas.
Exactly. Exactly.
Conservatives, right? Same thing in California. There's just as many Republicans and conservatives in California as there are liberals in California.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 50-50 split across the country, really.
Yeah, right.
It's more when you get into rural areas, it's more red. When you get into cities, it's more blue. But I remember being in Dallas at a first job at a big top 5 consulting firm. And in the training that we went through, someone actually said to me, oh, you're a liberal? Don't tell anyone.
Is that the company you and I both used to work for?
Yes.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't anyone telling me, no, you shouldn't, but it was someone who's like, if you want to get ahead, don't let people know that you're a liberal.
Well, that's interesting because I have the reverse of that. I was working in Waco, Texas for a quasi-governmental agency when I was in social work. And I was told by the executive
director and several of his direct reports to not tell anybody that I was right. Because you were in social work, you don't expect.
And I wasn't, that I shouldn't talk about that. And I'm like, why can't I have my own views? Why am I being judged because I don't think the way you think, you know?
Oh, but it's from both sides.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You got it from this company and I got it from this agency. You know,
that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I will say that as a journalist, my job that I have now and my previous jobs that I've had, it is the job of a journalist to remain neutral. So I keep my opinions to myself. If I know that I agree with a coworker, the topic will just come up on its own nature. We don't delve into it. We just keep floating as neutral as we can.
Yeah. That's
and
really
so
a good segue, Sadie, into another question. Do you, especially given that you are in journalism, do you feel that there are certain news sources or media that you both gravitate towards or that you both trust to get the real truth? behind what's going on with current events and in the news and stuff?
I would say that being in the journalism field, I make sure to fact check everything that I report, and I make sure to fact check the publication itself and make sure that it's a generally neutral source. I check, make sure that they're leaning neutral. I check the wordage used in the article to make sure it's as neutral as possible. And I prefer to use first-person sources, making people who are talking about their own discussions, whether that be in any form of online. But then I don't take what they're saying as hard fact until I fact check it myself.
I hear all the facts from her mouth because I don't like to look at the news.
Yeah, you and I, we've always had a connection. You and I are so similar. Same thing with Karen. I'm like, she's like, I watch the news. I'm like, it's depressing. Why do I want to depress myself for the day? It's depressing.
It doesn't do anything.
I get nothing out of it. And I've got you.
I constantly am just telling her, did you know? And she's like, no. And I'm like, how can you not know this? How can you not know this?
I know you'll tell me. So.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. And we see each other on such a regular basis that I'm not even concerned. If it's dire enough, she sends blurbs to my mom and my sister, and I don't have to worry.
That's right. You've got her for the research. That's like I've got my sis for the research.
Exactly.
Compliment each other,
Have either of you ever changed your position on an issue based on what you've heard from the other one?
A conversation that you've had and you're like, you know what? She may be right.
So we can kind of plug that into like what's literally happening right now with all of the immigration things. I'm not happy to see any of that happen. I do think people should be here and have paperwork and whatever needs to happen. I don't think that they should have to jump through all the hoops necessarily. I don't think that getting rid of everyone is the answer, but I think I understand why it's such a heated topic, and I probably would lean more right on those conversations. But then when she brings it up and she is like, Jesus says this, and if she does post on Instagram or something, it's always like scripture based. So I do think that probably impacts a lot of my thinking. It's not like I'm mouthing off to anyone ever. This is just all in my head by myself. But I do think that softened it a lot.
Yeah.
That she's not just posting so-and-so screaming about this topic. She's like posting, this is what Jesus says. So I think that's really come into play a lot with the hot topics of today.
I love that example. I really do. And Sadie, kudos for you to not be one of those just angry, spouting hate kind of people. You're actually coming to the argument and basing your views on your faith. And you're right. I mean, Katie, to your point, that made you stop and think about it from the scripture.
And
exactly.
Sadie, do you post those things knowing that Katie is going to see them in hopes that it will make an impact?
No. I post them for the people who maybe like her, or for the people who are sick of hearing the yelling and the anger side, because especially in Texas, a lot of people base their politics on faith, but a lot of faith is misinterpreted. And
like Sharon said earlier, exactly. I mean, like we might believe in all the same things and just hear it a different way. And that's what leads to our opposition.
Yeah.
Yes. Because like a lot of, in my experience, comes from the LGBTQ community and people using faith to say that that's a sin and that's wrong. And then they kind of take that and leap off into the right wing end. I mean, not the correct end. And so I like to use actual quotes from the Bible, not just preachers preaching, just actual what the Bible says, and say, hey,
right,
this is actually what Jesus says.
Yeah.
Right.
What you're hearing is human interpretation. These are the words of God.
Yeah.
So
And I
have
think-
you ever changed your position on something or softened your position on something based on what you've heard from Katie?
I can't say that I have.
I mean, this just truly takes up a lot more of her thought space than it does mine. And I mean, that might be something I need to work on. Might be something that I should concentrate more efforts on, but just in my daily life, this is not something that I talk about with my friends. This is not something that like will ruin my day.
Not
This
your
is just
priority.
not
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean,
Or-
if that's not the right thing, then like, I hope that I'm corrected in some way, but it's not at the forefront of my mind
Well,
ever.
well, yeah, but that's why we all are unique individuals, right? It definitely is much more at the forefront of my sister's mind, like
Yeah.
yours, but it's not mine. It's like we were saying just a little while ago. She can't believe that I don't watch the news. How can you not, pay attention?
It's the only thing we do in my house. My husband and I sit around
Yeah.
and we watch the news and we talk
And I'm like,
about
"That's
politics
so exhausting."
every single day. We are talking about world events and politics every single day.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it's so exhausting for me. That would literally like bum me out all the time.
It's exhausting to my
agree.
daughter for sure when she's here.
Well, what I really love is that I feel like up until maybe your senior year of college, like you were just always surrounded by opposition. And now I think you've finally gotten to a place where you're surrounded by people that think like you. And I think that's allowed you to be more expressive and more confident and fact check and whatnot. And I think that has a lot to do with who you are now versus who you were like in high school. Like you might have had the same thoughts, but you weren't expressing them the same way. So I think being surrounded by people with common beliefs has really made you solidify a lot of your thoughts.
And you're your authentic self, right? Yeah.
I think I definitely, contrary to popular belief, I would say that I got more, not necessarily conservative in college, but I think I toned down a bit more, kind of a choose your battles sort of thing. Because I remember in high school, every single topic politically, I was screaming from the rooftops of it. And in high school, I did experience a lot of opposition. Arkansas is even more red than Texas. So I kind of learned choose your battles. There's some things that are worth cutting people off, whereas others I still believe are.
Yeah.
And and at 23, that's amazing, right? That
Thank you.
gained that maturity. And I think it is experience and maturity that helps us to be able to pick your battles, choose those times to have those in-depth conversations and disagreements, and those other times not to, and to be able to kind of move on from that.
And I think some of it, like selfishly, I don't think I mentioned this earlier when you asked why we have come together at some points. From a selfish perspective, it's just eating away at me to disagree with somebody no matter what the topic. So I think a lot of it has to do with just, I would rather be at peace and think about happy things and think about what I could have said during that argument for 3 hours after it happened. So I wanted to throw that in there too, is yes, it's about being sisters, but it's also about being in a happy environment instead of just how can I have twisted the knife harder.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that because my sister and I wanted to avoid that, we just didn't talk. We rarely talked because we didn't want it. We tried at one point to have political conversations or about even current events, and it delved into a disagreement, an argument, and we said, okay, we can't do this. So we just went back to not
And we were
talking.
much younger. We were much younger when that happened.
Not much younger, only about 10 years.
No.
I was here in Morocco, so it was less than 15 years ago.
I thought we agreed to never talk politics and religion in 2001. Shortly after 9/11 is when we kind of...
Yeah, but we tried again after I moved here to Morocco.
Oh, okay. I don't remember
And it
that.
didn't go well.
I don't remember something now. There you go.
It did not go well. And we ended up screaming at each other on the phone. And I think you were just like, we're not going to talk about this. And I'm like, but I want to have conversation.
Wow. I do remember that now. I think you're right. I think I do remember
So
that.
then fast forward.
It was probably about 10 years ago. Yeah.
So fast forward to me finally convincing her, we need to talk about all of this on a podcast. And we need to do it now.
Here, and I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I also wanted to clarify that when I say that I think that there's some opinions that warrant the end of a relationship, I meant personal relationships. Obviously, professional and work relationships are not included.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's
Got a deal.
that's your job, and I think you should, as much as you can, keep politics out of the workplace.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Yeah, I would agree. But you're right. There are those times where, for whatever reason, it may not even be political or religious difference reasons, but it may be that there's just somebody in your life that it's become a toxic relationship for whatever reason, right? And sometimes you do have to move on from that relationship. But you're right, Katie. It goes back to what Sadie was saying too. She's learned to pick battles, and you do that in the workplace to keep the calm and keep your job. And
I think it's easier. I think it's probably easier in the workplace to avoid the topics. But with your family, these are the people you spend a lot of time with, or you want to have these conversations. And I always thought, well, if I can't have this discussion with my family, even if I disagree with them, then who can I have it with? Because I'm not going to be able to do it with a stranger.
Yeah. And I see your point, sis, on that, because if you can't have different opinions and have conversations about them with family who love you no matter what,
right?
Then, who can you have them with?
Exactly. I mean, that should be the people that you can have those with.
Yeah, exactly. There was one time, Katie and Sadie, that things got a little bit heated on one of the podcasts. And once we'd finished recording and everything, I couldn't get it out of my head. And so after about 4 or 5 hours, I called Karen and I said, she goes, what's going on? And I said, I want to talk about the podcast and the conversation this morning. I want to explain where I'm coming from. But I also want to let you know that I have really thought about what you said, and I see your point. And you are right, and I was wrong. Trust me when I say fireworks went off at her house.
Yeah. I wish she had told me she was going to do that because I would have recorded it. But
yeah, it's a shame that was just a normal little phone call.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. This has been something that has been extremely cathartic for she and I. And that's the only reason I really enjoy doing it, is because it is so cathartic. So do you think, well, let me just ask the question, because maybe it's just our generation that thinks this. But Karen and I have talked many times about the fact that right now the U.S. is very, very divided. Is that the sentiment in your generation as well?
I really don't know if I can speak to that because, like I said, it's not something I talk about with my friends. I think everyone's entitled to your own opinion. I really don't tend to hang around anyone that posts loudly. That is just not what I prefer to be surrounded by. If you get into above our generation, the adults, I'm an adult, but whatever. The adults I like to hang around, that could be my parents. They do maybe post a little bit louder on social media, and that's just something that I accept, and that's not something that I ever bring up in conversation. Maybe I do frown on it by myself. As far as our generation goes, that's going to have to be yours.
I have a lot of opinions on my generation, enough to fill a whole episode. But I think generally we exist in kind of a keep the peace. That's kind of my experience. People don't like to bring up your disagreements in person. So you say an opinion and then people around you might disagree with it. But as long as they're with you in person, they're not going to say anything just to keep the peace and vice versa. And I think it's a very kind of self-concealed generation, I would say, we live in.
I think that's really encouraging to hear.
I think the same thing.
Yeah. And I think, Sharon, that we even see that with our own children. Sure. I think it really is. This next generation is more of a live and let live. You don't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let them. Mm-hmm. So that is very encouraging to hear. Yeah. Because I think once we get rid of our generation and our parents, yeah, I think it'll be a much better country and world, probably.
But the other end of that is that people use online, Facebook, whatever, as their way to get their emotions, opinions out, and they're avoiding confrontation in person or avoiding disagreements in person. And I don't like that at all. I think if you are keeping your mouth shut in person and then you go online and mouth off, that's really cowardly. And I think that that's more of the popular thing to do because people feel so protected online. And then once it's online, you might have people backing you up that weren't a part of the initial conversation at all. And I just think that there's very much two sides to that. Yes, let them, but also if you're going to disagree to their face. And I just don't think that happens.
Yeah.
I would say it's also a very shallow piece. It's very keep the peace in this interaction in person at this moment, but then you never talk to that person again. A lot of people in my generation have kind of a one strike, you're out mentality. And I catch myself doing that sometimes.
And what is that called? Cancel culture.
Okay. Wrong.
disagree with that statement altogether.
Aren't they great?
My
Enough.
I know. They're like little mini
I
us.
think we are. I really
Like,
think we are.
I'd love to go to their house and stay for the weekend. And we literally just sit at the kitchen table and we just had this greatest conversation. I love these two girls. Love them.
Likewise.
Oh, you guys it really is like looking in a mirror. It's amazing. The dynamic between the two of you. It's great.
It is.
It's taken
If you
23
could-
years to get here.
Well, I don't want to scare you, but this is what you're look like in
Oh,
another
no.
23 years.
Don't look.
If you could give advice to other people struggling with how to come to terms with family members that are on the opposite side of the aisle, what would you say?
I think I really wanted to figure out where to mention this. So thank you for that question. A lot of my perspective now comes from like removing the politics, like removing all of the opinions that I find outlandish sometimes and looking at who she is. What really does her priority revolve around? Caring, helping, defending people who don't have a voice. She means well at the end of the day, even if she does side with some extremes. And that is like where I kind of have to grow my way of thinking in a bit is I know she means well. I know she doesn't want to hurt anyone at the end of the day. I know that she just wants everyone to benefit. And even though I don't agree that, I don't know, the whole wealth gap thing, like we could talk about that forever. I don't agree with it. But then I think about she's thinking that way to benefit those who have less.
You
It's
are-
not like
And the why. You're understanding her why.
exactly.
Listen
That's
to her.
that is just my takeaway for people that maybe are having a hard time coming to any common ground is think about the human instead of what's coming out of the human's mouth and then go from there.
Right. I love that. And that's what Karen and I have really realized too with doing this podcast is that we're understanding each other's whys. Once
Yeah.
we understand those whys, whether we agree with them or not, gives us an answer, I guess, as to why that person thinks that way. And also the intention behind the why are pure and not any different than what mine would be. She's even said that before. Everybody wants the same thing. They're no different. It's just how we voice it or, like you said, what's coming out of somebody's mouth versus who they really are, what their heart is. You know?
Yes, exactly. You sum that up beautifully.
Sadie, what about you? What advice would you give?
I would just say that love will always win. Kindness and compassion will always win. Humans will always win. And progress will always win. And anyone who is struggling because they have a disagreement with their family, I don't particularly have any advice to resolve it. But if there's any people out there listening whose family cut them out or they cut their family out because of something with their identity, whether they're gay or on their family super conservative, anyone whose family cut off a relationship or they cut it off because of who they are, I think that's incredibly strong and I'm very proud of them for sticking with who they are. And I trust that you will find your family.
Yeah, you have to be your authentic self.
And killing people with kindness is way more satisfying than stabbing.
Yes, definitely. It's been fantastic. It's been really insightful.
I hope that one day we're knowledgeable and educated enough that people want to listen to us talk.
Well, we're not sure anyone really wants to listen to us yet.
Never know. You never know.
So this was a great one, Sharon. I really appreciate you bringing these two fabulous ladies on. It has been amazing. I hope actually that we can have you both on in the future again.
I think so too.
I
Yeah,
think
that would be fun.
interesting.
Mhm.
But Katie, that means that you might have to do some research.
Yes, indeed. Just give me like 20 minutes heads up, and that's going to be the best research that you'll ever see.
There you go. There you go. I don't have to worry about Sadie, the journalist. I know she's going to do her research.
I got you. Yep. I
All
enjoy
right.
research.
So until next time, thank you again, Sadie and Katie. And thank you, Sharon, for putting this together for us. And we'll talk to you all next week. Bye.
Thanks, Sharon and Karen. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, that wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review. It helps us improve and get the word out.
Reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram or shoot us an email at agreetodisagree@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think, what topics you'd like us to cover, or any questions you might have. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.